Today we're continuing our study in the book of Proverbs, and we're kicking it off in chapter 3 with verse 7. And it reads like this: Do not be wise in your own eyes, but fear the Lord and shun evil. This verse is absolutely brutal, but beautifully so. Here's what I mean. Not being wise in our own eyes means that we are always searching for wisdom beyond ourselves. It means we're not relying on the wisdom that comes from within us, that we are searching the scriptures for true wisdom. We're always seeking after it, always desiring to be filled with a wisdom that is greater than our own. And that pursuit drives us to humility. That's the brutal part. We don't possess enough wisdom on our own. We have to seek the Lord. This fear of the Lord is true humility before Him. It's recognizing our place in the midst of a relationship with the Almighty and recognizing God's place as the supreme creator, the sovereign designer, the author of existence. To not be wise in our own eyes means that we are no longer relying on our own intelligence, on our own problem-solving ability, on our own sense of control, but we are instead seeking after what the Lord says. These are really difficult things, and the only way to do this is to spend time with Him, time in His Word, time in prayer, in conversation with Him, allowing for there to be a moment where He gets to speak back. Time in faithful community too, where we can be held accountable with others who have stored up the word in their hearts, like it says in Psalm 119 verse 11. And then we get to Proverbs 3 verse 8, which reads, "It will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones." There's this deep sense of well-being that flows from godly wisdom, a spiritual health that strengthens our soul when we stop leaning on our own understanding and start fearing the Lord. Our very bones, the deepest parts of us, the structure that keeps us upright, is nourished. The core of who we are becomes full and alive. It seems counterintuitive that if we are humble before the Lord, that we'll actually be filled with things. Because the nature of being humble means that we are emptying ourselves to recognize who we are in the presence of the Almighty. But then verses 8 and 9 push us forward and show us how wisdom actually takes shape in practice. Verse 9 reads, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, the first fruits of your crops." And verse 10 continues, "Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine." This is counterintuitive too, isn't it? That the idea if we give to God our time, our energy, our money, that somehow we'll end up more full. That doesn't make sense. We tend to do this human math, that 3 minus 1 equals 2. But God doesn't operate on human math. His economy isn't subtraction, it's multiplication. When we give to God, when we create margin in our day, in our weeks, in our budgets, in our hearts, in that space that we've carved out, God multiplies what remains. It defies the laws of math and physics, but it is true, and I've seen it firsthand. When my wife and I first got married, we combined our income and also our debt, much to my wife's dismay, because she had none, but I had a sizable amount of student loan debt. And so when we got married, my debt became our debt. It was in the range of several tens of thousands of dollars. As we sat down, we promised each other that this was going to be a priority, that we were going to get out of debt. But I was a new pastor, and my wife was working 2 part-time jobs, and together we were making okay money, but we were looking at 3 to 6 years to pay off this debt on a payment plan that we had organized that allowed for margin, that allowed for giving, that allowed for some fun in the midst of it. But we said we would lock in and we would pay it down. It was October of 2023. And in January of 2025, we had paid off over $90,000 in debt. And my wife sat down to crunch the numbers one day, and she looked at how much we had given toward the church and toward other nonprofits and charitable causes. And she looked at our bills, and she looked at how much money we spent on food and gas and spending time with family and gifts and you name it. And as she crunched all of those numbers, we had lived well within our means, but the math was still wrong. The math was still upside down. That's what Proverbs 3:9 is talking about. Honoring the Lord with your first fruits is to put him first, not as an afterthought, but at the very center of your life. And when we do that, he is faithful. This is not a story about how we did anything special. This is a testimony to how God can move incredible mountains all by himself when we create that space. He shows up in powerful ways. This is a story about him, not about us. He arrives in ways and times we cannot predict, but always in faithfulness. So wherever you are, I want to encourage you. Honor the Lord with your first fruits, the first moment of your day, not your leftovers, not with what's left at the end of the week or at the end of your strength or at the end of your budget. See all that you have as a gift from him. It all belongs to him anyway. And give it back with a joyful heart. Keep only what you need and watch him multiply it all. We live in this Western culture of abundance, of comfort and luxury, and so that word need may ring differently in our ears than what I intended to. But what we do actually need to honor God and to participate in building his kingdom here on earth, what is that need? And what can we live without? What can we entrust to God, allowing him to work wonders with? Some of us can't spare much in the way of finances, and some of us can't spare much in the way of time. It is a hard reality. And it's still true. Yet all of us can still honor God first. We all have a first moment to the day. We all have a fresh amount of energy every day. When we give him the first fruits of our time, rising in the morning to pray, to open his word, even if it's just for a moment, to commune with God before the day begins. When we put him first, when we give him the first fruits of our attention, seeking his wisdom before making our plans, when we give him the first fruits of our love, loving the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving our neighbors who bear his image, as we love ourselves as we bear his image. When we do that, when we put him first, he multiplies what remains. Our barns overflow, our vats brim over, not with the old stale sour, but with the new. Not always in material abundance either, but with something infinitely better. His presence, his peace, his provision. So let's not be wise in our own eyes, but let's fear the Lord and turn from evil. Because in that posture of humility, in that daily surrender, God brings health to our souls and nourishment to our bones. And until next time, peace be with you.